You don't push people away in obvious ways. You don't announce it. You don't explain it. You just slowly disappear. You reply later than you meant to. You keep things light when they start to matter. You sense closeness approaching, and something inside you tightens. It's not that you don't want people. It's that being seen feels dangerous in a way you can't fully explain. So you stay composed. You stay capable. You stay in control. People admire how independent you are, how you don't need anyone, how you seem untouched. But at night, when there's nothing to perform, you feel it. That quiet, unnamed distance between you and everyone else. Not loneliness exactly, more like self-exile. You tell yourself this is who you are, that you're just wired this way, that closeness isn't for you. But that's not the truth. Here's the paradox most people never see. The distance you use to protect yourself is the same distance that is hurting you. Pushing people away once kept you safe. It helped you survive unpredictability, disappointment, or emotional neglect. It gave you control when connection felt unstable. But now, that same strategy is costing you intimacy, warmth, and belonging. You don't avoid people because you don't care. You avoid them because caring once came with consequences. So, what once saved you is now slowly isolating you. Not because you're broken, but because your nervous system learned the wrong lesson for the life you're living now. And until that lesson is examined, distance will keep masquerading as strength, while quietly becoming your prison. Psychologically, this pattern is most closely associated with avoidant attachment. Avoidant attachment forms when early emotional bonds were inconsistent, intrusive, dismissive, or emotionally unsafe. The child learns a survival rule. If I rely on myself, I won't be disappointed. Attachment theory isn't about personality. It's about adaptation. An avoidant nervous system becomes highly skilled at emotional self-regulation, but poorly trained in co-regulation. The ability to feel safe while emotionally connected to another person. Imagine the nervous system as a house wired for emergencies only. The alarm system works perfectly. The locks are strong, but the lights for warmth and intimacy were never fully installed. Another key concept here is emotional deactivation. When intimacy increases, the avoidance system subconsciously down-regulates emotion to maintain control. Feelings are suppressed, intellectualized, or postponed. Not because the person lacks depth, but because depth once felt dangerous. Neuroscientifically, this involves heightened activity in the prefrontal cortex, the brain's control center, paired with inhibition of limbic emotional expression. In simple terms, you think instead of feel, you analyze instead of express, you retreat instead of risk. Then there's hyper-independence, often mistaken for confidence. Hyper-independence isn't freedom, it's a trauma response. It's the belief that relying on others equals vulnerability, and vulnerability equals loss of control. Finally, there's learned self-containment. You learn to become your own witness, your own comfort, your own emotional regulator. This is powerful, but incomplete. Humans are wired not just for autonomy, but for attuned connection. You became a fortress, not because you wanted walls, but because no one taught you how to build doors. The cost of pushing people away isn't loud suffering, it's quiet grief. It's watching moments pass that could have been shared. It's feeling misunderstood, but never correcting anyone. It's being deeply known by no one, while appearing functional to everyone. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." That's the wound. You don't lack people, you lack safe mirrors. So, you sacrifice authenticity for control. You trade intimacy for predictability. You choose emotional distance over emotional chaos. And slowly, something erodes. Joy becomes muted. Excitement feels unsafe. Hope feels naive. Your core fear isn't rejection, it's exposure. Exposure to being seen. Exposure to needing. Exposure to the possibility that If someone really mattered, they could really hurt you. So even happiness becomes complicated. When someone gets close, your nervous system doesn't relax, it tightens. Your body remembers something your mind tries to forget. And the most painful irony, you don't push people away because you don't feel deeply. You push them away because you feel too much and learn to survive by containing it. This is invisible grief, grieving the relationships you never fully let form, grieving the version of yourself that might have existed in safety, grieving connection without ever calling it loss. In adulthood, this pattern doesn't disappear, it evolves. You might notice it shows up like this in relationships. You crave closeness but feel suffocated when it arrives. You may withdraw emotionally right when intimacy deepens, becoming distant, critical, or numb. In dating, you're drawn to emotionally unavailable people or lose interest when someone is consistent. Safety feels unfamiliar, unpredictability feels normal. In friendships, you're reliable but reserved. You listen deeply but reveal little. People know about you but rarely into you. In conflict, you shut down instead of engage. You'd rather disappear than risk emotional confrontation. In career, you may overperform, self-rely, or avoid asking for help, believing competence is your only protection. Internally, you oscillate between craving connection and convincing yourself you're better alone. You gaslight your own loneliness by calling it independence. Here's the truth that changes everything. These are coping strategies, not personality traits. You are not cold, you are conditioned. The first step toward healing isn't forcing vulnerability, it's witnessing. Witnessing the moment you pull away. Witnessing the story you tell yourself about needing no one. Witnessing the fear beneath the behavior. Unlearning begins when you stop shaming the pattern and start understanding its origin. You don't rip down the walls, you listen to why they were built. Healing doesn't mean becoming dependent, it means becoming relationally flexible. One powerful path is inner child reparenting, learning to provide safety internally while allowing connection externally. You become the stable presence you never had, so closeness no longer feels like a threat. Another is shadow work, meeting the part of you that fears intimacy, not with judgment, but curiosity. Asking, what are you protecting me from? Healing also means choosing softness intentionally, not all at once, not with everyone, but in small, embodied risks. Letting someone stay when your instinct is to leave, saying what you feel instead of what feels safe, allowing repair instead of retreat. As psychologist Donald Winnicott wrote, "It is a joy to be hidden and a disaster not to be found." You were never meant to live unseen. The goal is not to be fixed. The goal is to be whole. Whole enough to hold your independence and your longing. Whole enough to protect yourself without disappearing. Whole enough to build doors where walls once stood. You are not broken. You are adapted. And adaptation can be revised. If this spoke to something unspoken inside you, share it with someone who might be silently self-exiling too. Subscribe, not because you need fixing, but because this is a space for remembering who you were before distance felt like safety. Because connection was never your weakness. It was simply where you learned to get hurt and where you can now learn to heal.